All right, ladies and gentlemen, happy President's Day. We are live. It has been a minute since we've been on here, but it is good to be back. Hope you guys enjoy the videos we've been putting out lately. Will Macaroni, friend of the channel, welcome back. Welcome back. You guys know I love to see my familiar faces here. So it's good to be back. We have not been streaming very much recently. Hey, Chris Lopez, how you doing? Welcome to the stream. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. We've not been streaming that much recently because honestly, I know we're going to talk about the state of the country right now, and that's just something I haven't really been wanting to do very much. News has been a little too real lately, so I don't know. I was kind of reluctant to live stream. Hello, Sir Butts the Fourth. I feel like I should salute you with a name like that. Welcome to the stream. Yeah, I've been just kind of sad about the news. Like it's been a little hard to not be a bit of a doomer. If you are new to the live streams, if you've never been here before, they are fairly different from the style in which I do my video essays. Here on the streams, I do not really try to be impartial. I do express a lot of my opinions. I have open conversations with people. You're welcome to disagree. I just feel like I wouldn't be that interesting of a live streamer if I was just trying to play it the way that I play it in my videos. So I'm gonna be opinionated. So ZJ13 Goat, hello. Cheryl Campbell, welcome. I'm sorry that you thought the screen was unpleasant. I do that because usually when I start, there's not anyone here yet, so it's not just me talking to myself for a little bit. I usually wait until there's a couple folks in here before I start. But thank you for coming, nonetheless. Chris Lopez, the news has been crazy. It's barely been a month since inauguration. Yeah, dude, trust me, it is exhausting. It has been so exhausting, like both personally and professionally. Like it's something that I have to deal with at my job, and it's a bit frustrating. And it's just like around all the time. Maybe that's why the last two videos I did were a lot less presidential than what I usually do. Maybe I need a bit of escapism. Speaking of which, ZJ13 Goat. Random, but I liked the nostalgia video you did. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. I appreciate it. Dude, the funny part about that video, the guys the folks from the Discord will know, that video was originally part of a much larger piece on conservatism that I did, which is taking me a really long time, and I feel like I might just break up into several separate videos because each chapter of it felt more and more distinct the more that I worked on it. So I ended up making it its own video, and by itself, it's almost 20 minutes long. So you can imagine how long the video overall was before. But I'm glad that you liked it. It's kind of different from what I do. It was more talking about media, but that's something that I'm very passionate about, honestly. And it was nice to see that I could talk about something so different. Talk about something so different from my usual subject matter, and still have people tune in and enjoy it. So I appreciate it. Ninja Forever said you're early for once. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you can come and hope you enjoy the rest of the stream. Will Facaroni said, "Let's start out. What do you find the most stressful?" Man, I don't know. The Elon Musk DOGE stuff has been really crazy. I'm surprised by how far that's gotten. Honestly, I'm one of those people that thought DOGE was just going to be kind of like a blue ribbon committee. I didn't expect that Elon Musk would actually have legitimate power. So it's been very, very concerning to see, to say the least, just the amount of stuff they've been doing. Bread said, "Is that Romney on the shelf behind you? I can barely make out the name." Yes, that is a book called Romney: A Reckoning. It's a very fantastic book. It's one that I used as a basis for my conservatism video. There's a whole section in there on Mitt Romney. I feel like he serves as a very interesting foil to Donald Trump. Sir Butt said, "Old people opinions tend to get exhausting." Yeah, I don't Do you mean just like old people in general? Not really sure what you mean by that. DJ13, honestly taking a step back from the constant news cycle. Man, I wish I could. I wish I could. I'm kind of addicted to it. I should probably stay away from it a bit. Chris Lopez did love the last two videos you did, like the nostalgia one. It's honestly amazing. And the can't separate the art from the artist is even better. I mean, I love the political stuff. The last two were good. Thank you so much. It is it's very nice to hear that. Honestly, obviously I love talking about politics. I especially love talking about the presidency, but I do have a lot of interests that I sometimes wish I could incorporate more to the channel. When the channel started out, especially, it was a lot less focused on just presidents. Like that content was always there, but I was always like I did a Gen Z video and I did another nostalgia video and I worked on other projects like that. So maybe this is something we could do more of in the future. I was really surprised by the reception of it. I kind of was like, oh, it's okay. I can put this video out and people might not watch it, but it'll just be for me. So. Wolf Hagarodi said, by the way, hope for more film analysis. You are speaking my language. I would love to do more film analysis. I actually just had an idea for a video today that incorporates some like different things that I've been wanting to do. So that's nice. Will Faccaroni, why do you think Musk has so much power? I think there's a lot of reasons Elon Musk has so much power, right? Number one is that he just paid a lot of money to help get Trump elected, and so he had to get something in return for that. But I think Elon is interesting because he is kind of the only figure in the Trump era, in the Republican Party, who's been able to kind of become his own power base, independent from Trump, right? Like he has his own influence, he has his own level of celebrity in a way that other political figures that are not Trump do not have. And I think that it's a mutually beneficial relationship, right? I think that Elon gets to be a political player, he gets to be in the White House, he gets to be called president by a bunch of people, while Trump gets to have this guy who's popular in certain spaces, like running a few things, and Trump gets to pay attention to the stuff that he cares about more, like tariffs, right? While Elon Musk kind of takes the fire for a lot of the like entitlement cutting that would make Trump a lot less popular. So I feel like a lot of the things that Trump doesn't want to be on the hook for might end up getting blamed on Musk, and I think that is beneficial towards Trump. And for Musk, it's beneficial just to be there. So, Ninja Forever, I feel you on the addiction. I reload the Associated Press page too often, dude. I know exactly what you mean. Oh my god, with me, it's I'm the kind of person that always wants to be listening to something, so I'm constantly just like looking for the next YouTube video, looking for the next thing to read. I like having that sort of constant stimulation, which also is probably not the best. ZJ said, I was a hardcore Twitter addict, but I quit it election night. My mental health has been so much better for it. Yeah, I quit for a few, maybe 2 months before the election, and I got back since there. So you and I kind of traded it off, but I've been thinking of quitting it again. So, Sir Butt says, I just mean boomers ranting a bunch of political conspiracies. So tiring. I'm by far the youngest at my job, so I hear a lot of them. Yeah, the political conversations that you hear at work can be really really discouraging. I think my friends over at the Head in the Office podcast often say that politics of the median voter are a very dark place, and I agree with them very much there. I will say, as cringy as sort of like boomer opinions can be, young people can have some pretty crazy opinions too when you listen to them. Especially people that aren't as aware of politics. Opinions on Thomas Eagleton. I'm not that familiar with Thomas Eagleton. I know he was a politician. He was the vice presidential candidate that that got replaced by Sergeant Shriver. Okay, I really don't know much about him other than the whole situation with his mental health struggles that got him taken off the ticket. What do you think is the worst case scenario and best case scenario with Doge? Apparently, it's meant to end in about a year. I didn't know that it's supposed to end in about a year. That's interesting. Um, where was that reported? Because I genuinely have not seen that anywhere. The worst case scenario is that I think there's some big sort of tragedy, like a major airline crash. I know people have been talking a lot about the airplane accidents that have been happening recently. I think that some sort of national tragedy that is related to like some sort of budget cut, right? Like the tragic accident that happened in DC. If that had happened later in the year after a bunch of like DOGE cuts of like air traffic controllers, that would have been a completely different story, you know. So some sort of like natural disaster where there's not enough FEMA funding, something like that would be the absolute worst case scenario for Doge, and I think they would just get endlessly ridiculed for that and blamed for that as well. I think that the best case scenario for them is that they get to do some, because I think it is a popular sentiment that government is inefficient and government needs to be fixed and it needs to be run better. You know, I think that is a popular sentiment among the median voter. But I think that the best case scenario for them would be if they're able to be like, we cut this much money from this thing and this much money from this thing. We're spending so much less, and look at how efficient we're making the government, you know. So, you know, Julian said, have you ever considered making a president video relating to another head of state, like the president and the UK PM relationship? That sounds like a really interesting video idea. I've never thought of that per se, but I think that's definitely one that that could could go in the idea folder. I don't know. I think dude, I get so overwhelmed with with video ideas. I have more ideas than I do videos in general, and very rarely do videos make it out of the idea stage for me. You mentioned you study something like communication in college. As part of studying that, did you take any film/media classes? Yeah, so I in college I majored in political science and communication, two kind of useless degrees a little bit. Learned some good stuff, but in the real world, not super helpful. I actually have a big background in film and media. So I went to a special communications high school that had like a big like film and TV program. And there I worked on short films, news media packages, stuff like that. And it's kind of crazy because that's where I started video editing as a freshman in high school. So that was 10 years ago this year. It will be that I've been editing videos on Adobe Premiere Pro. But I like wrote and directed and did like short films there that are not very good. And that actually is what used to be posted on my YouTube channel. I have those videos privated and unlisted now. That was the original purpose of the Andre Dutra YouTube channel back in the day. If you look, you could see that my channel was made in 2013. But yeah, I was super passionate about film and media, and it's something I kind of fell off of in college. I didn't participate there as much, but a large part of that is because I was in college during the pandemic, so I just couldn't do that much stuff on campus. I took like multiple film classes in college, but mostly a lot of like public speaking and communication in general. Before I get off of that topic, I see that DJ13 said something else. I've heard interesting things from my peers in high school and know that I'm at college. Took video production in high school, and I also made some other shit. Yeah, dude, the thing is that high school can only give you so much. That gives you the start of it, right? The number one thing that I learned is that if you take those classes in high school, that is the foundation, and you really need to keep going and work on things in your own time, because high school can only get you so far. It's the things that you work on after school, the things that you work on after you graduate that really do go the distance. I think Elon has enough power that if Trump turns on him, it'll be a massive power struggle. I don't know about that. I guess that Elon, if that were to happen with anyone, it would happen with Elon. But I still think that so much of the MAGA base is fundamentally just loyal to Trump, you know. So if that fallout happens, when it does happen, I know some people are more certain of it happening than I am. But if it happens, it would be interesting to see how the base deals with it. Trump, in his announcement of it, said it would end on July 4th, 2026, as the president for America's 250th birthday. Oh, that's interesting. See, did not know that. I wonder, people aren't really talking about that much in the conversation. Less heavy topic. Do you enjoy EDM, Andre? I've been addicted to Daft Punk for like a year now. I am super ignorant when it comes to electronic music. I honestly, I used to be a really big musical theater person. I have always been a very big hip hop person. Hip hop music is one of my true passions. I always say, you've probably heard me say it before on the streams. When I first made my YouTube channel, I could have either made it about history or about rap music. And I could have like just as easily went in those two directions. You could see, I'm bad at pointing. You can see Kendrick Lamar's new album, G&X, up here. That's left over from the Kanye West video. I put a vinyl in front of my books for that one, and I never ended up switching them back. But I don't know much about EDM music at all. I know the Daft Punk's supposed to be very good, and I think Get Lucky is a very well produced song, even though that song gets made fun of a lot. What do you think about a third presidential term, and what would you think of a Trump versus Obama election? Dude, it's funny. I posted a poll on my channel a couple weeks ago asking if people think presidents should be allowed to run for a third term. And I actually got a lot of comments being like, hey, why are you asking this? This is just rage bait. You're just trolling. And I was like, no, man, like this is an actual consideration. I'm more open, like I'm pretty open / sympathetic to the idea of presidents being able to run for a third term. I do believe that most of the time, if a president would be elected to a third term, they would probably not win a fourth, or the country would just get rid of them and wouldn't give them dictatorial powers. You can look at something like Justin Trudeau, who's been in office for 10 years, right? He doesn't have a term limit, but they could just get rid of him eventually. And I know that's a parliamentary system, not a presidential system. But still, I think there are more benefits than drawbacks, personally. But I could be convinced more either way. Dog amongst men. Can Trump pardon Hawk and change the name of Gulf America to Gulf of Baby Oil? Man, I debated whether or not I should. I'm not going to get into that too much. Third terms are unconstitutional. Yes, they are unconstitutional, but there'd be a repeal of the constitutional amendment. You know, it would rework the term limits of the presidency. Thoughts on Trump's Gaza plan? Clearly not well thought out, and during his Fox News interview, Trump said he would own it, not the country, which makes me think it's just using this for real estate. Man, okay, so the most generous interpretation of Trump's Gaza plan, which obviously I completely disagree with, and I think is like gross and disgusting, that that's even something that the president of the United States would say. All that stuff goes without saying. I like the most generous interpretation of it is that it's a negotiating tactic. You know, he's trying to sort of get something more favorable, but it's just, I don't know, with Trump, it's so weird. And it definitely seems like something he didn't run by his advisors. He didn't run by Netanyahu, which also brings into question, like, how serious it is. Like, is this just something he's saying off the cuff, or is this like a genuine policy thing? With Trump, you never know. Wow, you are badly underestimating the worst possible harm that Musk and DOGE could do. I'm bad at typing or would expand on that. Yeah, I mean, I guess I I could have said worse things. Like there could be just like a total fracture of our federal government bureaucracy, our like Medicaid could stop working, all those things. People could be left without insurance. We could be left without like doctors, nurses. There's definitely worse things that could happen. I guess I was more so just thinking of a bad thing rather than the worst. Thank you, Cheryl. We read the Cool Kids table that was in NY Mag, New York Magazine a while ago. If you do you think there's an accurate view of Gen Z politics, or is it just overgeneralization based on a few people? So I heard of this article. I didn't get the chance to read it. I wish that I did. I meant to. From what I understood, I don't know. Gen Z is so disparate, you know? I think that like right-wing Gen Z culture is pretty different from left-wing Gen Z, and I think that a lot of people have also been drawing contrasts between older Gen Z that kind of came of age before COVID and people that came of age after COVID. And there's just some like socialization differences there. I can probably give you a more accurate answer after I read the article. Might have been overstating the fallout. I do think Elon needs Trump more than the other way around, but I think Elon would turn Twitter on Trump and then it would be a massive trash fire. But the question is, what constituency does Musk have that is independent from Trump? Like I know you acknowledge that Elon needs Trump more, but in what way do you think Elon could use Twitter to turn the MAGA faithful against Trump in a way that would be effective? I'm not sure. ZJ13 said, to be honest, 2 terms should be the max. It would be hard for someone to pull an FDR 2.0. Reagan maybe could have done it, but there's definitely stuff between 88 and 92 that would have stopped a fourth. I mean, exactly like that. That's what I'm saying, though, is I feel like a lot of the times, like I've heard this argument made before, that Bill Clinton, if he runs in 2000, he gets reelected, and then we don't have the disaster of the Bush presidency, right? Like there's not the whole like, Florida fiasco. There's not the transition being delayed and the Bush administration being less prepared to take on 9/11. Clinton administration, even if 9/11 did happen, like almost certainly would not have gone to war with Iraq. And that's its own whole can of worms there, you know? So I feel like sometimes if there is a stable hand steering the ship, it might be best to keep them on. President Musk was sitting behind the Resolute desk on the cover of Time magazine. Even they know who's in charge. They got the message. It's all coming together. I'm joking. I know Trump's in charge. Yeah, I think, you know, it's actually kind of funny. I saw a clip today of Trump being like, you know, they're trying to say that Elon's the president, and they're trying to do that to divide us. They're trying to do that to piss me off, and it's not working. And I was like, oh, wow. I didn't expect that from Trump. I did actually think that would get under his skin, but I thought that was interesting that he was like, hey, they're trying to get under my skin. So I guess what Time magazine did is not really working. Repeal the 17th Amendment. The Senate and the House serve different purposes and should be elected differently. Huh, I don't know. I'd be curious at you expanding on that, Fancy Cat. I haven't heard that argument before. I'm going to try to get through a lot of the other comments because I do not want to fall behind. I had a convo about presidential term limits and was surprised at how many were open to removing it. However, I think it's a positive because it forces the country to, in Washington's words, move on. Yeah, I think the country moving on is good, but I also feel like the country could have a good sense of when to move on. You know, I truly don't believe that the U.S. is going to fall into some sort of like dictatorship that we're just going to keep electing the same person with no check on democracy. You know, like we're in such an anti-incumbent environment right now. What candidate could even get elected to a third term? I don't know. Will Facroni said on Gaza, CC rejected talking to Gazans, taking the Gazans, which means none of the countries in the Middle East will take them. I think there's some talk about Somaliland takes them in exchange of recognition. Oh man, I mean, but it's just ethnic cleansing. Like it's just getting them out of the Gaza Strip and trying to bribe someone into taking them and just be terrible all around. See, this might be the most depressing part of our conversation. I feel like part of why the government doesn't work so well now is Congress, and the courts do not have the same requirements to move on. Yeah, I'm pretty open to reforming the Supreme Court. I mean, people get upset that Congress doesn't work, but people also generally approve of their own representatives, right? Like Congress has a bad approval rating, while most representatives have a good approval rating within their own district, right? Like we could complain that Congress is ineffective, but like unless you're putting in some sort of like campaign finance reform or term limits or something like that, I really don't. You guys see the red, white, and blue land thing? Yes, this is in reference to a congressman who suggested that as a new name for Greenland. Very, very unserious thing. Brad said, I think most people are sick of a president after 2 terms. The two people could have run for a third term. Truman and LBJ didn't run due to unpopularity. Yes, that is a check, a democratic check on the power of the presidency, right? The more I think about it, the more faith that I do have that people would just get rid of a president once they didn't like them anymore. The 13, so Clinton probably would have landslided in 2000. I think it probably would have been his most difficult election, but yeah, I don't think he would have landslided. This is after Lewinsky, which I know didn't weaken him as much as most people would think, but third term Clinton probably his most narrow victory. Thoughts on the Ukraine war? Whew. Light topics, guys. Light topics today. Man, Ukraine. I think that I should be a lot more educated on this. Ukraine is very complicated, and I am not an expert on this by any means. I think that the Ukrainian cause is a good one, obviously. Like Russia just invaded a sovereign country with brute force because they felt like it. And I think like Putin obviously had been eyeing Ukraine for a while. No one really expected him to actually do it. I think that it's difficult because Ukraine has kind of gone through an entire generation of young men. I've lost a lot of confidence that they'll be able to get themselves into a better position, right? Like, despite all the aid that we've given them, Russia just has a lot more human beings to throw at them. I feel like some sort of negotiated peace with concessions is probably the best way to go. Like, I think Ukraine has had a just fight, like a worthwhile fight, but I also think that it's a question of, like, how long can we do this? What really are we trying to achieve? How much territory can we preserve? Like I said, far from an expert on the topic, but from what I understand, that's my general read. Hey, Sheev, nice seeing you here. ZJ13, with Obama, if he could have run for a third term, probably would have continued to hold his early 2010s approval rating compared to his 2016 one. Huh. That's interesting. I think, man, see, Obama running for a third term beats Trump in 2016, no question. Right? Obama-Trump rematch, if if that were possible, would be one of the more interesting elections as well. Andre Dutra, saw your video on Yay. I can't believe you turned the free TV movement from a joke into a real thing. Yeah, that was ridiculous. Can you believe that's the first video? The first comment I got on that video was someone being like, Kanye has a cold take on Diddy and it gets him canceled. This is common sense. And I was like, ooh. Lots of just unfortunate comments on on that Kanye video. Not going to lie. Comments that made me very, very discouraged. Unrelated to politics, I'm playing Mario 64. I used to play that on EBS when I was little. Only good music Kanye's made is a collab with Miles. I have not heard that, but I am also just not interested in checking out new Kanye music. Random, but if you ever listen to or like Nine Inch Nails, super ignorant on metal, super ignorant. I have not listened to it. I apologize. Most of the rock that I heard and that I like tends to be kind of like dad rock, like folk rock kind of stuff. So very much on the borderline. You've seen C-SPAN's presidential historian survey. The release every 4 or 8 years after there's a change in administration. The release one this year, and Biden will debut on the list. Yeah, I'm curious. I've definitely seen those before. That is something that my favorite political science professor in college always liked to bring up. That was something that he was very proud of being included in. And yeah, I'm curious to see. Biden's probably going to debut. I don't know. They might rank him a little higher, just in contrast to Trump. But I think public opinion in general on Biden probably will be a little more favorable later on in retrospect, despite a lot of his big failures, especially on foreign policy. Happy President's Day, everyone, and Andre. Yes, happy President's Day, guys. We have not talked about that much. We're in an anti-incumbent environment now, but things won't last forever, and I don't think unpopularity with the public is a good enough check. I don't know. I definitely agree that an anti-incumbent environment won't last forever, but is there genuinely a president we could think of that you think would be elected to more than 3 terms? Right? I genuinely don't believe that's the case. I have a really hard time seeing the United States elect a president for more than 3 terms. Think about it. That's 12 years. Right? I know FDR was elected to a 4th, but that was FDR. That was during the war. Like the greatest war in human history. Ninja highly recommends Sarcasmatron's Ukraine series. We'll check it out. Thoughts on Hubert Humphrey, if any? Yeah, Hubert Humphrey is a really interesting figure. Probably one of the most notable figures of the 20th century not to become president. The Happy Warrior, as he was known. One of my favorite writings about Hubert Humphrey is in the beginning of Master of the Senate, about Lyndon Johnson by Robert Caro. He talks about the Senate cloakroom and how all these like idealistic liberals like Hubert Humphrey, these people that were progressive on civil rights and had all these ideals, and kind of holds them in contrast to Lyndon Johnson, who is, especially at that time, perceived as very like cynical, very against civil rights, and of course ends up being the person to pass the Civil Rights Act. I think that Hubert Humphrey falls in, like a lot of his legacy ends up being tied to Lyndon Johnson at Vietnam, of course serving his administration, being his vice president, and then having to pick up his campaign in '68. I think that it would be an interesting world where Hubert Humphrey was the nominee in 1960. I really wonder how that would have gone. But definitely an icon of 20th century American liberalism. I'm reading Homeland by Richard Beck, which goes into detail how post 9/11 American culture and pessimism led to Trump's election. What's your thoughts on that? Oh, I think that's definitely a big part of it. If anything, I would probably tie it more directly to the Iraq War. I haven't read that book personally, though it sounds very interesting. I think that the Iraq War. Well, I'll start with 9/11. That's what the question's more directly at. I think that 9/11 shook a lot of people, right? America felt truly invincible as the world hegemon for a very long time. So just the idea that we are fragile, that we are susceptible to outside threats, and the whole aftermath of that. I guess you could probably they probably in the book do tie 9/11 to obviously like the war in Afghanistan and less directly to the war in war in Iraq. I think just those Middle Eastern forever wars and the circumstances of the war in Iraq in particular, just being this sort of cynical, um, in a lot of ways lie that just got us into war with the Bush administration, just wanting to engage in with American adventurism, broke a lot of people's trust in the establishment. Like George Bush, by the end of his presidency, even the Republicans didn't look too fondly on him. Kanye fans currently don't shock me too much. I've seen YouTubers exposed as predos and still have a fan base. Yeah, man, it's one of the most discouraging things about the Kanye situation is all of, like, the line for me was all of the terrible things he said in 2022. That's when all the anti-Semitism stopped being Kanye. I was really dismayed by the amount of artists that I follow and respect and whose work I love and admire just kept working with him and just kept following him. And, I just was really disappointed by that. And I was kind of annoyed because it was like obviously Kanye saying fuck Virgil is terrible. Right? Like, that's what the next comment, that's what Dylan Meacham comments about. Like, that, that's someone who's very close with. But that was the line for a lot of people. Not the anti-Semitism, not all the terrible things he said about people. Like, it was that about his friend, which, of course, is terrible. Like, come on. I don't know. Curious how Biden will be remembered on that list in 20 years. Yeah, I think really good domestic, or I'd say a pretty good domestic policy record, some really important legislation. I think he started the movement away from the neoliberal order. Like, he was the first Democratic president to kind of engage in this current realignment that we're having. I think he ducked heterodoxy in a lot of ways, that it's going to be interesting to see how the next Democratic president either continues what Biden did or goes in a different direction. I think a lot of it is just too soon to tell. I think his foreign policy legacy is definitely going to be really complicated. He's very proud of having rebuilt NATO and reasserted the U.S. on the world stage, only for Trump to come in and kind of do what he's doing. Obviously the legacy, his legacy in Gaza is abysmal. Like enabling the genocide there. Ukraine is a lot more mixed, and I don't know. We gotta see. Wax the Weasel said, I try to gaslight myself into thinking Kanye West died in 2002 in a car crash after a long night making multiple albums worth of music. Man, I wish. If anything, you'd probably I don't know when my Kanye cutoff would be. A lot of people would say 2016, where after Pablo, but I like Ye, I like Kids See Ghosts. I love Kids See Ghosts. The Kids See Ghosts vinyl was right in front of my desk. It was one of my favorite Kanye albums. It's a wonderful album. I like most of Donda. It's definitely too long. I like that I'm getting so many Kanye questions during a live stream. We got a super chat. Wait, I just saw the super chat. Yo, thank you, $2 Garage for the super chat. I noticed America no longer has a positive myth driving us forward. This is concerning. Stagnation is bad. We need a good goal. Dude, thank you for the super chat. Thank you for the generosity. I always get super excited whenever I get super chats. I have a video that really, really addresses what you're talking about, which is awesome. It's called The Great American West. And in it, I kind of address how the Wild West myth, in a lot of ways, is this harmful idea. It sort of negates the plight of the Native Americans. It paints them in an unfavorable light a lot of the times. But this image of like the individualistic, rugged cowboy and manifest destiny is something that's very vital for the American character. And I think that's a mistake the left makes a lot of the time, is they distance themselves from American identity. They distance themselves from a lot of history. You know, like you'll get people sort of talking about like Thomas Jefferson, who clearly did terrible things. You know, like Thomas Jefferson was a slave owner. By our modern standards, would be a very horrible person, but also he contributed so many things to this country. A lot of his ideas are what our country was based upon, and we can be proud of what Thomas Jefferson did for this nation while acknowledging the horrible things that he did to the hundreds of human beings that he owned. You know, same thing with George Washington. So I think that we can engage with our national myths in a way that is healthy while acknowledging the reality behind those situations, right? And that's a lot of what that video is about, was me exploring the Western United States and kind of being enchanted by its natural beauty and the fact that we just took this land, but also what this land says about us and means to our country. It's a really interesting subject, and it's one I'd love to touch on more. And I'm so happy that you brought it up in the super chat. So thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, got to go back on a couple comments. Let's see. 2022 Siena College survey ranked Biden 19th. 2024, the American Political Science Association ranked him 14th. My guess is C-SPAN will rank him anywhere between 14th and 19th. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. I don't know. I feel like it's so early. Thoughts on Trump's annexation threats? Yeah, I mean, a lot of them are unserious, right? I think Greenland's probably the most serious one. Obviously, we're not going to take Canada. We're not going to take Mexico. I think he just really wants to like posture the U.S. as this sort of tough guy country. You know, like he probably read a couple paragraphs about William McKinley, and now he's all about that. I don't know. It's not something I take too seriously, but it is like a huge blow to our credibility. The leader of the free world would just say that. Washington would easily be elected to a third term if he was resurrected from the dead by a necromancer. Yeah, he'd probably just have to become a bit more woke. I fear George Washington. A lot of his views would not be too popular among the American public unless the necromancer that's reviving him just like automatically modernizes all of his ideals. I think Obama is viewed favorably by many historians because he's being compared to W. Bush and Trump. Biden will be seen favorably because he's compared to Trump 45 and Trump 47. Yeah, probably, but still a bit too close to tell. Let's see what the next Democratic president is like, right? And how Biden will compare to them. What are some video ideas you're sitting on or even think you might never make? Whew. Video ideas I'm sitting on. Man, you're asking me to give away the secrets. How about I tell you, okay, some video ideas that I would like to make that I haven't, that I might not make. Okay. I made the rise of Richard Nixon recently. I've had the notes for the rise of JFK video for over a year now, and I have not gotten to that yet. I might get to it soon because I had a conversation with someone that made me very excited about young JFK and kind of made me want to work on that. Ideas. I want to do more videos in Florida, and which is something I think people I don't know. I've made one Florida history video and it didn't get that much traction, but I think it was fairly well received. even if like people that usually watch the channel probably didn't watch it as much. But I would like to make more videos in Florida just because I feel a bit distant from a lot of American history. You know, living in like the Miami metro area, I'm far from anything super colonial, from anything Civil War, right? So I think that being able to get out of my room and film outside and also understand this region that I grew up in better. Because as much as I like am passionate about American history, I don't know that much about local Florida history. So I'd love to learn more there. I've had ideas to talk about like albums and movies and things before, like different figures. Like a lot of times I have an idea and I just don't write enough about it. Like I have like a Bill Clinton video that I never quite fleshed out. I have a video that will still come out eventually, probably because I wrote a lot of it about like a Hamilton retrospective. I have one about like the presidency and pop culture. I have that conservatism one, which is the one that's really in limbo right now. So yeah, there's a couple videos that may come up sometime in the future. I think if it weren't for Gaza, the Afghanistan pullout, and to a lesser extent Ukraine, Biden will be remembered more fondly for his domestic policy, arguably pushing it further left since Nixon. Yeah, I mean, ooh, dude, Gaza's a big if. The Afghanistan pullout could have probably it could have been handled better, but I still think that pulling out of Afghanistan was fundamentally the right decision. I think that Gaza is probably going to be a much bigger stain on his legacy. Reagan would have gotten at least one more term. Same with Obama. It doesn't take a World War prez to get one more time. FDR broke the tradition in 1940, pre-Pearl Harbor. Yeah, but you got to think that 1940 was also a very, very tense moment where the U.S. being drawn into World War II wasn't really out of the question. You know, I think that switching leaders at that moment would have been quite sensitive. I definitely think presidents could get elected to third terms. Like I think Reagan and Obama probably would have both been elected to third terms. It's a question of whether they would be elected to four terms. I have a very hard time seeing a president get elected to a fourth term. What do you think AOC's next step will be? I've always thought that it would be running for Senate out of New York. I don't really see her running for governor of New York. I don't really see her being governor at all. I feel like she's such a national politician. She probably belongs in Washington. Her best bet is if Schumer steps down. I feel, which I mean that might be a pretty competitive primary, but AOC is she's polarizing, but she's got a lot of star power. You know, I definitely think she gets further than the House. And I'd probably like to see her be in the Senate before she runs for higher office. Recently read Fear and Loathing on the Campaign Trail 72. Good book. Bit scared how many parallels there are between the Dem Party of then and now at 2028 could be a repeat of 1972. Yeah, man, I gotta read that book. I haven't read many campaign books. I read a good one about the Biden campaign in 2020 recently called Lucky. Man, I have to know more about the 72 campaign. That's George McGovern. I mean, I'd be curious in what ways you see it as similar. For the positive myth thing, I would like to pitch the idea that America has consistently overcome its regressive natural, consistently overcome its regressive nature. I feel what I was supposed to say that was inherently baked into us as a nation. Yeah, I think that that's the whole idea that the moral arc of the universe bends towards justice. You know, and as best as progressives can articulate that, I think the most important part of that message is the fact that it is patriotic, you know, and I like that. I like the sort of America, you know, like we have changed with the times, we've had issues, and we have overcome them, you know, as you were saying. I'd be curious on how because it's easy for us to talk about it right now in the abstract. I'd be curious examples of like politicians utilizing that, or any of them that would use it in the future. I respect Jefferson for making decisions that was believed that was best, even if it was contradicted what he had said. Some might say he's a hypocrite, but I think it shows a willingness to change. Yeah, I think that Jefferson's fascinating. You know, he is a man who is in many ways struggling against his own time, and I think it's human, the idea that you can acknowledge slavery as this like moral failing, right? As this like terrible institution. But also you're like, okay, I'm a Virginia planter and I need this to survive, right? It's like even the most enlightened of us, like Thomas Jefferson, may sacrifice our ideals in favor of just real world practicality, which is quite sad. But I do also think that that's something to consider, and that's a decision that we have to make in our own lives, right? Like how closely do we adhere to our beliefs versus our practical situation. Jordan Sweet said, hey, Andre, great last few videos. Maybe discuss how movies shape our views of presidents, aka JFK, Nixon, and all the president's men for the JFK/Nixon rivalry. Yeah, dude, you left this comment, didn't you? I'm so sorry. Sometimes I read comments on like I'm at work or I'm stopped at a light or something, and I'm not able to reply to them right away. But I did see your comment, and I thought that was an awesome idea. So I started making a video called about the presidency and pop culture that talks a bit about what you're saying, but I focus more on fictional presidents. I would absolutely love to make a video covering fictional portrayals of real presidents. I think that would be awesome, and I would love some more examples of that as well. So that is a video that you could definitely expect to get made at some point. Just no policies on, because I've found that I can change my mind a lot. I can think that something's going to be my next video, and then it just does not end up being, which is like very ADD of me, I will acknowledge. But whatever, as long as the videos get out. Cheryl Campbell said, by the way, I'm 67, so I've lived through a lot of this. Never registered to vote until Obama. Well, I appreciate the fact that you're watching, that you were 67. That's awesome. So much of my audience, well, I will say, like 90% of my audience is male, and 90% of my audience is like under 30. So the fact that you have a 67-year-old woman watching is absolutely incredible. Thank you so much for checking out, because there's not a lot of people like you watching the videos, and thank you for coming on a live stream. That's really amazing. I haven't seen your comments recently, so I appreciate that. I love seeing some diversity in our audience and people watching it that might not usually watch this sort of content. So thank you and welcome, and I hope you watch more. Homeland goes into detail about the mythos of the American canon and the relationship of the civilized Christian English Puritans and savage Indians, and how it's formed our view of heroes today. Dude, that is, oh my God, I need to read that book, because that is so much of what I want to talk about. I'm so interested in the ideas of just like American identity and how that's incredible. I need to watch that, or I need to read that. Sorry. I wrote it down. How much of Trump's decisions do you think are just based on opinions he formed back in the 70s? The whole canal, just for lack of a better word, emotion. Yeah, that's something that I've actually really tried to get across in some of my videos, particularly my video, What Nixon Thought of Other Presidents, was the fact that obviously people become presidents usually in the latter portion of their life, and they've experienced all of these political events that were formative to them. And we tend to associate figures with the era in which they were at their highest office, when in reality, you do have to consider Donald Trump in the 1970s, right? I think that's an incredible point, and I think that Trump in particular came up in an era where the American public just lost faith in the presidency, right? From like JFK being shot to LBJ in Vietnam, Richard Nixon resigning, Ford pardoning Nixon, losing re-election, Jimmy Carter being seen as a weak president, losing re-election, and then eventually Reagan comes in and kind of starts to redeem the American presidency for people. Obviously, he still has issues like Iran-Contra and stuff, but I think that the idea of like American decay and like lawlessness and chaos, a lot of these things that Trump talks about does very much echo that sort of pre-Reagan cynicism that really took over the United States. And I think that's a really important factor in understanding like American carnage and Trump's whole diagnosis for the country. You know, like Trump carries on the tradition of Reagan and Nixon in a lot of ways. He carries on the tradition of like backlash politics. And I think we do ourselves a disservice by talking about Trump like this unprecedented thing, like this anomaly in American history, because he's not. You know, like he has his own unique things that make him uniquely terrible, in my opinion. But he is a logical continuation of the people that came before him. I need some water. Whew. I'm talking a lot. I'm a dog for an hour straight. Would love to see a video about some lesser known New Deal era Democrats like Senators Russell Long, Mike Mansfield, and Frank Church. Very underrated political figures. 100% would absolutely love to do that. There's two things there, right? Number one is I have to research them. So it would help a lot if there was like a very good, like detailed biography of them, or at least something where they played a major role. I don't generally like to make videos about people that I haven't read at least a book on, or at least a book in which they featured as like a major part of the story. And number two is I need to be able to package the video in some way that people will probably watch it, right? You know, like that's not always at the forefront of my consideration. At the end of the day, I'm going to make the video I want to make, no matter how if people are going to really watch it or not, right? Like sometimes I might make a video that I feel like is going to do as well. Sometimes those videos that I don't think will do as well end up doing really great, you know? So I think I would just have to figure out how to package it. Any thoughts or perspective on Florida's rapid redward shift? Yes, I hate to be that guy, but I do also have a video about that. It's called The Florida Dream, and it's awesome. I think like it's an awesome subject. Not the video. Sorry, it's a but it's a really interesting subject. I do like the video though. It's probably one of my favorites. Yeah. So Florida is really fascinating, right? And my video. No, I won't give it all away. And so people like Sheev, Wolf Acroni, ZJ13 will probably get amnesia from me saying this because I've explained this on a couple different streams. But Florida is very much a dream state. It's kind of its entire identity is tied up in being this place where people vacation, right? It's a place where people vacation, they retire, or they want to move to. So we get a lot of, with Florida drifting more to the right, we've gotten a lot of disaffected conservatives from other parts of the country, particularly bluer parts of the country. I think the top three are New York, New Jersey, and California, account for a large part of Florida's immigration. And so the rightward shift is part of a big culture, like a big population boom that we're having. A lot of people are moving into the state. A lot of people bringing in conservative ideas that are attracted to the more conservative, like the conservative drift of the state. So it's kind of like this self-fulfilling thing, you know? But at the same time, our prices are significantly increasing. And it's getting a lot less sustainable for the people that have lived here for a long time. I myself probably don't see that much of a future for myself in Florida, both culturally and due to cost of living. I think that it, I don't know, it sucks in a lot of ways because I've always thought of Florida as this weird little like diverse pocket of the country that kind of exists by itself. So to see it just become more conservative is a bit disappointing. But oh well, it's always going to be the place where I was raised. I've lived here for a large majority of my life. So yeah. I honestly see AOC running for president in 28. I don't know, man. I don't know. I feel like she still has longer to go. I also feel like AOC would be a better president down the road if she waited. Right? I think that's another thing that we need to consider is just life experience. I feel like if AOC were to be president, I'd like to wait till at least her 40s. You know. Let's see. I'm very much late on some comments. I might skip around a bit, guys, especially if I've answered your comments before. Thoughts on Ilhan Omar? I don't have anything super interesting to say about her. She's a member of the squad, so she aligns with me politically more so than most people in Congress. I think that she's been unfairly targeted a lot of times. For comments that she's made that might have gotten like misconstrued. Obviously, there's the infamous like all about the Benjamin stuff, talked about the Israeli lobby, which I don't think would I'm not someone that's gonna apologize for anti-Semitism or anything at all. I don't see that comment as anti-Semitic. I think that she probably could have been a bit more sensitive about it because you are talking about like Jewish people and money, but also just like to what extent can you not talk about the Israeli lobby? It's like this, very powerful organization. So I think that like she's fine. She could definitely be better on a lot of things, and I think she falls into even more of like a polarizing space than AOC does. But Build Back Better would have been the most transformative set of programs since New Deal. So convinced if Biden got all that passed and Gaza never happened, he would have kicked Trump's ass despite his age. Yeah, man, but those are two big ifs, dude. That's just a counterfactual. We can't ever know for sure. Like Build Back Better, Cinema and Manchin, but those are the Democrats that we had. Cinema, I think it's ridiculous that Cinema didn't vote for it. Cinema is representing Arizona. Yes, I know Arizona's a swing state, but come on, man. Like, I really think Cinema would not have wasted that much political capital doing that. And also, Cinema didn't even run for re-election. So it's like, what's the point? Right? She could have voted for whatever. That is, like, either she's just ideologically there or it's just her being bought out. Right? Joe Manchin, I understand Joe Manchin does represent West Virginia, or did represent West Virginia, a very conservative state. He also wasn't going to run for re-election, so he could have if he wanted to, but I also understand that that's probably not where he was ideologically, and that's probably the best you can get out of a West Virginia Democrat. I don't know. You just need to be in such a different political moment for Build Back Better to work out. And with Gaza, I feel like I've talked that to death, and just thinking about like if it never happened, that just fundamentally changes a lot of the tone around the Biden presidency. I don't know. The guy that wrote Lucky also wrote Shattered about Hillary's campaign for another recommendation. Yeah, that'd be awesome. I really enjoyed Lucky, and I believe he mentioned Hillary Clinton quite a bit throughout that book and how she considered jumping into 2020 at the last minute. I feel bad because I didn't get to your comment. Last question before I head out, slightly connected to Ninja's comment. Have you read the Alan Parnes book on Hillary and Biden's campaign? They got a book on 2020 coming out in April. No, I have not. But that sounds interesting. I don't know. I got to read more campaign books. There's so many books to read, guys. I feel like I read so many books. There's always so much. God. Theodore Roosevelt or Franklin Roosevelt? Pick one. Do not say either. I go Franklin Roosevelt. I think Theodore Roosevelt's probably a bit more of like a charismatic, like American mascot. but I think a lot of the imperialism there, the adventurism, um, makes him not as like cool of a figure as he could be domestic policy wise. Franklin Roosevelt obviously has the problem of the internment camps. Black people were left out of the New Deal. A lot of that was also coalitional because the Southern Democrats. I personally am more of a fan of FDR. Ben Franklin told Jefferson to remove the emancipation of enslaved people from the Constitution because it angered the South and destroy the Union. What was I just saying about how Franklin Roosevelt had to leave black people out of the New Deal because for coalitional reasons? It is a consistent factor. Yes, I'm familiar with this, and it is a question of the compromises that people have to make, right? There's a lot of morality nuance in Jefferson psychology. There is. Jefferson is fascinating, and there's a lot of impossible decisions that these figures have to make, and that's why that's why I would never want to be a politician. Never want to be a politician because I don't want to be the person in that chair. I should take the time to tell you that I enjoy your videos on both presidential / political videos and pop culture. Keep up the amazing work. Thank you guys. I appreciate that so much. I really, really do. I don't know. It's very reassuring to know that you guys will be here for either type of content. I think that I was surprised by how well the last two videos did, and that lets me know that I can make content that doesn't always cover the same thing. So I appreciate that reassurance. Matt Connell said, "Happy President's Day! Happy President's Day to you too, man." And he said, "Come on, bro, the video is awesome." Talking about the Florida Dream video. Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna speed run through a couple questions so I could come back up. Okay, I already read that one. The Trump is unique crowd makes me so much, annoys me so much. Like bro, he stole Reagan's campaign slogan. Exactly. He appeals to the same sort of nostalgia that Reagan did. And I touched on that at the end of my nostalgia video. Cheryl study, her main studies have been Manifest Destiny, Native issues. That's fascinating. That is a part of history that I'm not nearly as familiar with as Native American issues. So I'd be really curious what you have to say about that. Oh god, especially since the 70s, dude. That's like when my parents were kids. My parents were born in 69 and 67, so whew. Arseny Chetravoy said, "Always love biographical side of politics. I think personality is highly underappreciated. If we look at a person's biography, we can easily determine what kind of professional that person will be." Dude, that is so much of like my thesis behind a lot of my biography videos. I'm glad to see someone echoing a similar sentiment. 100% agree with you. I live in New England, and Florida is viewed very much as a dream that you can get for being a good American who works till 65. Yeah, dude. The retirees are a whole other portion of this. The people that bought a house for like $5 back in the 1920s, that sold that house, and now they have a lot of money, and come down to Florida, and God, dude, it is so impossible to compete with those people. It is so hard. The cost of living is so bad here. It is absolutely ridiculous how much more expensive it has gotten. Oh god, New England is not cheap. New England's so expensive. So the people that were used to paying New England prices in that scenario come down to Florida, are willing to pay a little bit more. See what happens. Who do you think will run in 2028 for both parties? Okay, Republican, you probably get Vance. You probably get maybe Ramaswamy again. You probably get Rubio. Maybe Don Jr. Maybe Doug Burgum probably runs again. He ran in 2024. I don't know how successful he'll be. What are some other? Josh Hawley, maybe. Akai actually brought up to me, a friend of mine who I stream with sometimes, brought up to me Pete Hegseth might run. He seems like a guy who might who wants to run for president, which, God, would be interesting to say the least. Democratic side, I think that you probably get Mark Kelly, probably get Josh Shapiro, probably get Wes Moore, who I think is an interesting candidate. Gavin Newsom definitely runs. Gretchen Whitmer definitely runs. Maybe Tim Walz. Maybe Kamala Harris. Maybe Cory Booker. You know who really seems like he wants to run? Chris Murphy from Connecticut. That guy has been everywhere. And it's funny because I feel like I haven't seen that many people talk about him, but he seems like someone who definitely wants to run for president, who's trying to position himself in kind of like a weird realignment space. Let me know if you guys have seen anything about Chris Murphy and what your thoughts on him were. I spoke to a friend of mine who actually got to interview him, and it was an interesting conversation. If you look at how Reagan was often influenced by Coolidge and looked up to him greatly as a president, which former president / politician do you believe Trump 47 is most inspired and influenced by? William McKinley, dude. William McKinley. I don't know why. I don't know where it came from. I'd be so curious to know where it came from. But it really, really, oh, God. I don't know where it came from. Just like the American adventurism, the imperialism, the foreign policy pursuits. It's very, very strange. Republican here. I gotta say, you're fair and it's appreciated. Thank you. My goal here, especially on the streams, is to be very outright about my political beliefs, but and like let you know where I stand, offer my opinion on the situation, but also offer analysis. I like if Democrats do something stupid or something that I don't agree with, I talk about that. Republicans are doing something that's like smart politically, I'm going to talk about that, even if I disagree with it. I feel like we can have a good, honest conversation, and I think like if I were just like trying to be down the middle and trying to like hide my opinions, that just wouldn't really work as well. What do you think of Kendrick's Super Bowl performance? And who's better, he or Kanye? Woo! I really enjoyed Kendrick's Super Bowl performance. It's what I expected. I thought it was going to be a lot of GNX. I didn't think it was going to be a lot of hits. If you listen to Kendrick's interviews leading up to the Super Bowl, not a lot of it was referencing his past work. He was talking so much about being present, being in the moment. So much of that album is about being present, about being in the moment, about this particular time in Kendrick's life. So I don't know, I don't see why anyone would have expected him to portray something else, especially because he's already had the Super Bowl performance with Dr. Dre. I thought it was awesome. His performance was incredible. Just the amount of energy and breath control that it takes to rap nonstop for 13 minutes while running up and down that stage, dancing, and having to like censor yourself for the curse words and all those things. It's incredible. It's really, really something. And I don't know. I admire that he just didn't do the nostalgia thing. He didn't do what every Super Bowl is, where they just play their biggest hits. I like that he did something unique, and he probably knew that was going to be polarizing. As far as him or Kanye, Kanye's music has more of a more personal significance to me, I will say. I really came of age with Kanye. I really came to sort of like understand my own identity through a lot of Kanye's music. Though I will say that Kendrick objectively is the better artist. I think that Kendrick's writing is unmatched. I truly think that Kendrick Lamar is one of the great writers of our time, and he just happens to be writing rap music, and he does so beautifully, right? I don't think you would see Kendrick doing something like Vultures. You wouldn't see Kendrick like crashing out in public the way that Kanye does. I think that, I don't know, Kendrick doesn't really disappoint. He always comes out with something interesting, something that you can tell he put a lot of work into, and I've always admired that about him as an artist. So out of personal importance to me, Kanye, but in general, probably Kendrick. Okay. Seems like Republicans don't want to repeal or replace Obamacare now due to the political costs. Do you think it's officially too popular to ever cut? now, like Social Security or Medicare. Yeah, I mean, the thing about Obamacare is that they wanted to repeal it for so long, but there wasn't really a cohesive message. There wasn't anything to replace Obamacare with. And I know a lot of my friends on the left will say that it's Mitt Romney's healthcare plan, right? And it's what he did in Massachusetts. And Romney, the incredible book that's back there on my shelf, actually kind of goes into that, how Romney had to campaign and be like, yeah, the public option, it works really well in Massachusetts. That's what worked for Massachusetts, but I don't want that for the whole country. And he had to kind of distance himself a bit from this thing that he did that was very politically popular in his state. Like Obama's a fairly moderate guy. So when Obama does the Mitt Romney's healthcare plan, it does kind of leave Republicans with like oh, what do we do? And I'd be curious what my Republican friends would say to that. But I think it's really just the absence of something else. And also, there's just so many bungles, where when it comes to Obamacare, right? Like the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, famously polls much better than Obamacare, despite being the same thing. Just like personally attaching it to Obama's brand probably delayed what you're talking about by a couple of years, it becoming too popular, Sheath, okay, Trump is unique in a lot of ways. I'm not saying that he's not. And he is very different from Reagan. I think he is a logical evolution of what Reagan represented, right? That sort of appeal to nostalgia by having a figure from the past who calls back to this old version of masculinity, right? Like Ronald Reagan in the 80s was a 1950s movie star, calls back to this like square dot idea of American masculinity. Trump in the 2010s calls back to like 80s sort of tabloids, even like less of a callback to like the Apprentice that he was on right before he ran for president, Also, oh my God, did we just get 2 super chats? That's awesome, guys. Thank you. Let me get to those, and then I'll go back to the question. Jay Reaction said, "What are some of your favorite presidential biographies?" Yo, Jay, I have a whole video about this, bro, but I will go through. Thank you so much. Shout out to Jay Reaction, who is always leaving super chats on here. That is so awesome of you. Not only that, he's a member as well. So this guy is really about supporting the channel, and I appreciate that so much. Your generosity means the world to me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Seriously, I cannot fathom. But some of my favorite presidential biographies are right behind me. Of course, you've heard me talk about it to death. The Years of Lyndon Johnson by Robert Caro, my favorite book series ever written. Absolutely adore it. I think that it is a great gateway into reading political biographies. It is like one of the most intimate looks at a person, a human being that I've ever seen written, and it's so beautiful. It will teach you so much about America in the 20th century, so much about Lyndon Johnson, so much about power, so much about how Congress works, how the Senate works. I think that like it's been talked about to death, but I really do love it so much. It's my number one recommendation to anyone. Another book that I absolutely adore, you can't really see it, but it's behind the Kendrick vinyl, is JFK, Coming of Age in the American Century. It is one of the few books that I will put on par with the Lyndon Johnson biography. Absolutely love that book. It is the most interesting version of JFK. It talks about him as a young man, sort of being one of the last Americans in Germany before World War II, being idolizing Winston Churchill, and then meeting him because his dad was the ambassador to Great Britain. His thoughts as a soldier in the Pacific, contemplating why are people dying to protect these dumb islands. It really is such an intimate look at him, and it makes you forget that he becomes president. You're just looking at as Jack, as this young guy who you're reading about, and you can forget how the story ends. And that's something so difficult to do with and something so difficult to do when it comes to a figure as ubiquitous as JFK. So I absolutely adore that book. Trying to think of other ones that I really like. His Very Best by recently passed Jimmy Carter is also another one of my favorites. It's an absolutely incredible book. Incredible book. I think that it offers a really unique perspective on Jimmy Carter, and not only will you learn about Jimmy Carter the man, Jimmy Carter the human being, the politics of his era, I think you'll also understand what made Jimmy Carter so remarkable. And it, more than any other presidential biography, made me look at my own life and sort of consider how I do things, the effort I put into things, and it's seriously such an incredible book. I could talk about these books forever. I might have to do a follow-up video about my favorite presidential books, because I feel like I have some others to talk about that I haven't touched on yet. Those are three that I recommend to everyone. Whew. Okay. Damn, we just got another super chat? You guys are going crazy today. I don't think I've ever gotten 4 super chats in one chat before. That's awesome. Thank you guys. Thomas Leonard said, yours is becoming one of my favorite U.S. history channels. 100% agree that Chris Murphy is going to look out, is someone to look out for, possible VP in 2028. Thank you, Thomas Leonard. I forgot to say your name. I appreciate it, man. That's so... thank you for the super chat. Thank you for saying that I'm becoming one of your favorite history channels. I don't know what my hair is doing, guys. It's not a good hair day. My mustache looks crazy, too. Damn. Thank you for... that's always something so, like, crazy and humbling to hear people say. So I really do appreciate it. And, yeah, Chris Murphy, he's interesting, because I feel like he's really trying, but he feels a bit far away from this moment on, like, a charisma level, but I think his politics are interesting. He's a little more unorthodox of a Democrat, especially with some of his realignment things. But thank you for the super chat, man. And if Chris Murphy becomes VP in 2028, know that Thomas Leonard is the one that called it. God, we're gonna have a lot of comments to look back on. Sorry, guys. History with Campbell, another familiar face here from the channel. Thank you for the super chat, man. 8. What is that? Is that Australian dollar? Or why did I say 8A? Is that 5 Australian dollars? That's awesome. What are your thoughts on Al Gore? What do you think he could have done if he won in 2000? Dude, if Al Gore wins in 2000, our politics is so fundamentally different, right? There's no war in Iraq, and I think the war in Iraq might be the single most, like, crucial... 9/11 is obviously, like, a really big pivot point. But 9/11 sort of wasn't... Like, it wasn't a decision that we made, right? Like, Iraq was a decision that we made. It's something that we walked ourselves into. No, Iraq is genuinely such a massive shift in American politics. I do not know where we are today politically if it had not been for Iraq. I think that President Al Gore probably tries to restore faith in the presidency a bit, right? After the Clinton affair, there's not, like, the hits to presidential credibility that would come in the Bush era. Likely, I think that... I don't know, because you think of the early 2000s so much in terms of foreign policy, but really, if it's Al Gore, it's going to be domestic. It is going to be, like, more focused inside of the country. I don't know. I guess I'd have to be more of a Al Gore expert. As far as my thoughts on him go, I only really tend to think of him in contrast to Bush, and he would be a lot better than Bush, in my opinion. And who knows? I think isn't Al Gore younger than Bill Clinton? Let me see. How old is Al Gore? Might be the same age as Bill Clinton. Born in March. He's a little bit... I think he's a little bit younger than Bill Clinton. I think Bill Clinton was born in 46, so I think he's 2 years younger. He could still run. Spring chicken. That's a spring chicken. You said, yeah, it's 5 Australian dollars. Thank you, History with Hannibal. I appreciate it. I'm sorry if I wasn't able to answer very well. Okay. Thank you guys for the super chats. That was awesome. I have to go back on a lot of comments, and we'll probably wrap up kind of soon, so I'm going to make my way through a lot of the comments we have right now, because I do know I am significantly behind. I'll probably skip a couple. Okay. Let's see what. Oh, Arseni is from Ukraine. That's awesome. Or well, I hope you're safe. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that's awesome like that. Well, that's crazy. I don't usually have people from over there watching the videos. I'm from Ukraine, and I love your video about presidential last words. I will study business and politics and communication. I want to start my own channel and write articles. Any advice on how to start? Oh man, as soon as I say you guys are just trying to get me to yap, as soon as I say I gotta log off soon, you guys give me an awesome comment like this, but I gotta make sure I spend a lot of time answering. So first of all, that's a really awesome career path. I think that's amazing. Whenever anyone tries to get into this, as far as starting your own channel or writing your own articles, those are two very different things. I will say, starting your own channel, dude, you gotta know what you're doing. I think when you go into it, is like, okay, am I just doing this for fun? Is this something I want to be professional? Try not to treat it like a job. I feel like I was treating it like a job way too early, and that led to some troubles. Right. I think that as long as you're doing the stuff that you got to do, like try to make sure that you're getting better every video. Make sure that it's fun, that you're talking about the stuff that you want to talk about. You know, I hope a lot of the stuff isn't just coming off like platitude. But it really is that, dude. You could fall in so easily to just doing what you think people expect of you, and getting frustrated because you can't, like, oh, maybe like I'm having writer's block right now, or I don't feel like working on this video. It's just a matter of finding your voice and trying to get better with every video, finding the stuff that you like, the stuff that you want to emulate, the kind of videos you want to do. It also depends a lot, like what kind of experience you have. I had video production experience going in, and that was something that helped me a lot. But if you like ever want to have a conversation about the work that you're doing, anything more specific, like you could reach out to me. Instagram is usually a pretty good way to do so. You can do so through Discord as well, and I'd be happy to talk to you. I'm always down to talk to other creators. Unconventional person who the Dems could run is Sean Fain. Yeah, that would be super unconventional. I didn't mention Stephen A. Smith. I don't know how that didn't come to mind, but Sean Fain or Stephen A. Smith would be two very unconventional candidates. Let's see. Skip around a little bit. 2024 is 1968, and Trump is a weird combination of Wallace and Dixon. That's really funny. What am I reading right now? I was reading this book, but I haven't checked it out. I haven't picked it up in a little bit. It was The Situation Room by George Stephanopoulos. It was a fine book. I just kind of fell off of it. I've been wanting to read about Florida history recently, so I'm probably going to try to find a book about that. Only problem is I usually listen to audiobooks just so I can multitask. I can usually listen to books at work, and that helps me a lot, time-wise. So I need to find a good Florida audiobook to listen to. Would be great if anybody knows anything. That is my alarm. Sorry, guys. Okay, sorry about that. Set a reminder for something. Thoughts on Luigi Mangione? I have a pretty cold take on this. I feel killing people is bad, right? Like we shouldn't kill people in broad daylight. That's not a good thing. But I do think that what Luigi Mangione did and the sort of cult of personality around him speaks to a genuine dissatisfaction with the healthcare system. I think that someone like him kind of becoming this cult figure is very telling of the times that we're in. I think that, if anything, we should take a much deeper look in our healthcare system, and it sucks that it took a guy killing another guy for us to have more of a conversation about it, because I've never seen healthcare talked about that much. Never seen healthcare talked about that much. Yeah, not super interesting, but let's see. Sheev said, Is the vice president gaining more importance in politics? These days seems like a sure sign of being a presidential successor with Biden, Kamala, and Vance. Yeah, I mean, I think Biden was uniquely suited to be Obama's successor in an election where a successor made a lot of sense. And when I mean successor, I don't just mean someone that follows Obama as the Democratic nominee. I mean someone who keeps the Obama legacy going. Right? I always say, because I think it's a great analogy. When I was a kid, I'm Brazilian. I'm Brazilian American. Lula was the president of Brazil. Barack Obama was the president of the U.S. They both leave power, and these two like right wing people take over. Lula himself, because the term limits are different in Brazil, Lula himself comes back, runs against Bolsonaro, beats him, gets back in office. That represents very like if there wasn't a third term limit, Obama would have run in 2020 and gotten Trump out. Right? Biden wins in 2020 not because of Biden, but because he is an extension of Obama. Right? Like the Lula-Obama parallels are very, very strong. It's just that in Obama's comeback, it had to be through Biden. And Biden ends up being a very different president than Obama was in a lot of ways. So, if Trump, like if it wasn't for that unique scenario, I don't see Biden becoming Obama's successor. Same thing with Kamala. If it had been an open primary, I don't know if Kamala had one. Like, let's say best case scenario, Biden we overperformed in the midterms. The Democrats overperformed in the midterms in 2022. Biden steps back and he's like, "Hey guys, we solidified this victory. We did better than we expected. I'm going to hand this off to the next generation. Let's open up the Democratic primary." I don't know if we finish with Kamala. I generally don't know if we finish with her. There's a good chance that we do. I think she'd be like one of the most serious candidates, but I don't know 100% if she wins the primary. As far as Vance, I think Vance probably will be the nominee in 2020, unless him and Trump have some sort of falling out. I think he's definitely being thought of somewhat as Trump's successor right now. It's just going to be a question of like, where does that go? So I think there's like a natural element of the VP being the successor, but I'm not sure how much of it is like specific to our era right now versus just the circumstances that we've had, if that makes sense. Let's see. Gonna skip a couple comments, guys. Sorry. Led said, Panic of 1893 allowed for Cleveland to win a non-consecutive term over Harrison in 1894. And you can make comparisons to Trump beating Biden over our economy. Cleveland's second term, he became hated for having not changed much in his first term, worse than the Panic of 1893 with Harris. Do you feel you can make the same comparisons with Trump now? Yeah, I mean, obviously the economy that Biden took over in 2021 when he became president was the economy that had been damaged a lot by COVID during the end of Trump's first administration. I would argue that a lot of the inflation, a lot of the economic troubles that the U.S. is dealing with, to my understanding, again, like I'm not an economist, but this is what I've seen a lot of economists say, is that a lot of that is fallout from 2020. A lot of that is fallout from the pandemic and supply chain issues and all these things. And that, that would have happened if it had been Trump or Biden, right? And I think that like Biden did a lot of good things on the economy, things I think that definitely helped and that long term is going to be beneficial, but that people didn't immediately feel in their pocketbook. So, like, yeah, Biden did pick up a lot of slack from Trump. Now the question is, can Trump actually, like, is the economy going to bounce back? Or, like, I know you mentioned Cleveland's tariffs. about like Trump's talking about putting in tariffs now. Like, hey, like even he will say, hey, there might be some pain, but this is going to be good for us in the long run. Is Trump misreading his mandate? Right? Can he really just come in and like make it more painful for a little bit? Who knows? I don't know. Like I feel like that's a misreading of his mandate, so I'm not really sure really where that goes. I think his second term could be remembered really poorly, just like you're saying. But I'm open. There's so much I can ask about RFK and DOGE, but what are your overall thoughts on Trump's first month in office? Other than the pretty standard just like things you would hear from someone with my politics, I will say, feels like the Overton window has shifted. Feels like we are in this very strange new political world that we weren't at before, right? Like RFK Jr. is in the cabinet, Tulsi Gabbard's in the cabinet, like Kash Patel is director of the FBI. That's crazy. There's just this level of just our politics feels so out there right now, and I don't know what the backlash, because I do guarantee you there's gonna be some backlash for this. I don't know if it's just gonna be like super technocratic or what, but it's the first month. I guess I expected. I was like, okay, maybe it'll be like Trump won again, but it's felt so much crazier. Like it felt so much worse, in my opinion. And it's man, I don't know. It's fairly dispiriting right now. Abe Lincoln pardoned Joe Biden's great-great-grandfather. I also found out that Biden was born closer to the end of Lincoln's presidency than his own. 77 years from Lincoln's, 78 in 2021. I knew about the detail about him being closer to Lincoln's presidency than his own, but I didn't know Abe Lincoln pardoned his great-grandfather. That's really interesting. Who do you think actually wins the Democratic primary? What, in 2024 or 2028? 2024, oh, man. Josh Shapiro was having a bit of a moment, wasn't he? Okay, who runs? People that run in 2028 for are probably like Gretchen Whitmer, Josh Shapiro, Gavin Newsom. Out of those, I might probably Gretchen Whitmer or Josh Shapiro to come to mind. I don't know. I feel like either one of them would end up with Kamala as their main rival. Maybe Kamala still gets it in 2024. I'm not sure. Okay, I will just make my way through the last couple of comments and we'll probably wrap up for the night, everyone. Logan Finney said, I see the Obama-Biden relationship to be a JFK-LBJ kind of dynamic. Reached highest office through persistence and party dynamics, and Biden running so many dang times, and your point about legacy. Yeah, I think there's some similarities there. I think it definitely wasn't as adversarial. It was adversarial in some regards, but not as much as the JFK-LBJ dynamic. But it is similar in the idea of like this younger, more experienced candidate who's sort of remembered more in a more romanticized fashion versus like the older sort of like Senate backslapper who's his VP and who ultimately ends up being his successor. It's interesting. I never really conceived of that parallel. Based purely on Kamala's 2020 primary, I bet she would have lost a fair primary, but this assumes Obama and everyone else don't get the other candidates to drop out against Super Tuesday. See, I don't know, though, because I feel like Obama got the candidates to drop out pre-Super Tuesday to stop Bernie, right? I don't really know what sort of like Bernie, like left-wing type figure would have been in the position to run in 2024. Really. Maybe Tim Walz, maybe. But I don't know. I don't think they would have made that much of an effort to coalesce a figure if it wasn't someone so like outside of their ideological orthodoxy as Bernie was. 100%. Did you hear about Democrat Eric Adams becoming MAGA and getting interviewed by Tucker? It shows that MAGA is less of an ideology than these days and more of a mental state. Yeah, it's more about fealty to Trump, right? More about saying nice things about him and whatever. I think that, I mean, Eric Adams is about as conservative as the New York mayor as you're going to get, right? I think anywhere else he's probably a Republican, but in New York City he can't really win as Republican, so he ran as a Democrat. I don't think he was ever that much of a Democrat, you know. But oh man, I hope he resigns. I really hope that guy resigns. Fuck that guy. What will happen to Biden post presidency? You better wait, yo. We got Mr. Beat in the chat. Hey, Mr. Beat, what's going on, man? Oh, that's awesome. For anyone who doesn't know, I'm gonna be in Kansas next month at the Dole Institute at the University of Kansas doing a live panel with Mr. Beat. If you guys are in the Kansas City area, it'll be awesome for you guys to pull up. And that's such a good opportunity. I've been so excited about that. I've also been really intimidated by it and scared, but I'm also really excited. It's an awesome opportunity. So thank you, Mr. B, for joining right here at the tail end of our stream. That's awesome. He got his butt kicked by JD of History Underground History Trivia. Oh, that's awesome. I'm scared of who it takes to beat Mr. Beat in history trivia. Oh, that's so awesome! It's so funny with Mr. Beat to join right at the tail end of the stream. Well, thank you though. But yeah, if any of you guys are in the Kansas City area, it's gonna be so much fun. I've been so excited for that. I'm really looking forward to it, and it's awesome. God. Okay, I will probably go through some of the last couple questions here, and we will wrap up the stream for the night. Because I will confess, my voice is getting quite tired. Going on for almost 2 hours now. Happy President's Day, Mr. B. I realized he said hi, and I didn't even answer his comment. Okay, guys. I'm gonna make my way just through the last couple of questions here, and we'll wrap up. God, where was I? What will happen to Biden post presidency? They'll eat some chocolate chip. Hey, love the stream. I think we'll get over this crazy era. Also, what do you think would be the ideal way to be less divided? I don't think Americans want to be less divided right now. Right? I made this point in the video. I don't really remember which one. But I think we're very strong in our beliefs, and we kind of define ourselves in opposition to each other. And I think we can kind of like the idea of being less divided, but I think that we want to be united, but we want to be united along our own political beliefs. We're not really looking for that much common ground. Somber answer. But Arseni said, thanks for the advice. I will contact you sometimes. I think our opinions align a lot, and I think I can learn something from you. Oh, that's awesome, man. Like, I'd be so happy to talk to you. I love talking to other creators, and I the stuff is awesome. And I've had so many awesome creators like Mr. B who've talked to me. So I wanna be able to pass that on. I will probably wrap up right here. But thank you guys so much for coming. This was really fun. This is probably the most fun I've had in the stream in a while. And thank you guys for all the super chats. Everyone was super generous. Thank you guys for all of your comments, for coming and spending your Monday night with me. I really do appreciate it. And thank you for the kind words on all of the recent videos. And yeah, seriously, thank you guys for joining. Thank you, Mr. Beat, and everyone else. You guys are awesome, and I will see you next time.